The sun was setting over the city as a 14-year-old boy made his way home from school. His backpack hung heavy on his shoulders, filled with textbooks and homework assignments. He usually took the main roads home, but today he decided on a shortcut through the industrial area. His mom didn't like him walking this way, but it would save him 15 minutes, and he wanted to help his grandma prepare dinner before she got too tired. The shortcut took him past old warehouses and small businesses that were closing for the day. Workers nodded at him as they locked up shops and headed to their cars. The boy kept his head down, focused on getting home quickly. The worn soles of his sneakers scuffed against the cracked sidewalk as he walked. That's when he noticed something unusual up ahead. A sleek black luxury car was pulled over on the side of the road. The car looked completely out of place in this neighborhood. It was the kind of vehicle you'd see downtown near the financial district. Not here, where most people drove older models held together with hope and duct tape. The boy slowed his pace. He could see a man in an expensive-looking suit pacing beside the car, phone pressed to his ear. One of the tires was completely flat. The man looked frustrated, running his hand through his silver hair as he talked on the phone. The boy hesitated. His mom had always taught him to be careful around strangers, especially in unfamiliar areas. But she had also raised him to help others when they needed it. After a moment's thought, he adjusted his backpack and approached the stranded driver. "Excuse me, sir," the boy said, keeping a respectful distance. "Do you need some help with that tire?" The man looked up, surprised. He was older than the boy had first thought, probably in his 60s, with kind eyes despite his frustrated expression. He wore a tailored suit that probably cost more than the boy's family paid in rent for 6 months. "Oh," the man said, lowering his phone. "Thank you, young man. I've called roadside assistance, but they said it might be an hour before they can get here." He gestured hopelessly at the flat tire. "I was on my way to an important meeting when this happened." The boy set his backpack down on the curb. "My uncle runs an auto shop. He taught me how to change tires last summer when I helped out there." He pointed at the flat. "If you have a spare, I could help you change it. Might be faster than waiting." The man looked surprised again, then smiled. "That would be incredibly helpful. I'm Richard, by the way." He offered his hand. "Nice to meet you, sir," the boy replied, shaking Richard's hand. He paused for a second, remembering his grandma's warnings about giving his name to strangers. But the man seemed trustworthy and they were on a public street. "I'm Andre." Richard opened the trunk of his luxury car, revealing an immaculate interior with a spare tire and tools organized neatly in compartments. Andre was impressed. His uncle's tools were always scattered everywhere. "I know where everything is," Richard said with a small laugh. "But I'll admit I've never actually changed a tire myself. My driver usually handles these things, but he's on vacation this week." Andre nodded, already rolling up his sleeves. "It's not too hard. I can show you how it's done." Richard watched with interest as Andre got to work. First, Andre made sure the car was in park and the emergency brake was on. Then he found the jack and spare tire in the trunk. "You always want to loosen the lug nuts before you jack up the car," Andre explained as he worked. His hands moved with confidence. "My uncle says if you try to loosen them after the car is up, you might knock the car off the jack." Richard nodded, clearly impressed. "That makes perfect sense. Where did you say your uncle's shop was located?" "Over on West Side Avenue," Andre replied, grunting slightly as he loosened a particularly tight lug nut. "Williams Auto Repair. He's been there for almost 20 years. "I think I might have driven past it," Richard said. "The small place with the blue sign?" Andre nodded, positioning the jack under the car frame. "That's the one. It's not fancy, but my uncle knows every car inside and out." He started operating the jack, raising the car carefully. "My grandma says he could fix a car with just a paperclip and some chewing gum if he had to." Richard laughed at that. "Sounds like a talented man, and it seems like he's passed some of that knowledge on to you." As Andre worked, he told Richard about how he'd spent last summer helping at his uncle's shop. He'd swept floors and organized tools at first, but his uncle had gradually taught him basic repairs. By the end of summer, he could change oil, replace air filters, and handle tire rotations. "You're quite industrious for someone your age," Richard remarked, handing Andre the lug wrench when he asked for it. "Most kids would be playing video games all summer." Andre shrugged as he removed the flat tire. "I like games too, but my uncle pays me for helping out. I'm saving up." He didn't mention that most of his earnings went to helping his mom with bills. That wasn't something he talked about with strangers, even nice ones. Saving up for anything specific? Richard asked. Andre paused before mounting the spare tire. College, he said simply. I want to study engineering someday. Richard's eyebrows raised. Engineering? That's a challenging field. I'm good at math, Andre said without boasting. It was just a fact. And I like figuring out how things work. He aligned the spare tire carefully and began threading the lug nuts. What kind of engineering interests you? Richard asked, seeming genuinely curious. Andre tightened the lug nuts in a star pattern just as his uncle had taught him. Mechanical, maybe. Or electrical. I built a small robot for the science fair last year. Nothing fancy, but it worked. That's impressive, Richard said. Did you win? Andre smiled slightly.
Second place.
First went to a girl who grew plants in different types of music. Her dad's a professor at the university. Richard nodded knowingly. Sometimes connections help, but real talent always shines through eventually. After a few more minutes, Andre lowered the car and gave the lug nuts a final tightening. He stepped back, wiping sweat from his forehead with his sleeve. That should get you to your meeting, sir. The spare isn't meant for long drives, though. You'll want to get a real replacement soon. You've just saved me a great deal of time, Richard said, looking genuinely grateful. He reached for his wallet. Please let me compensate you for your help. Andre shook his head. No need for that, sir. Happy to help. Richard looked at him with newfound respect. That's very admirable. But I insist on something. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. My company is always looking for bright young minds. When you're ready for college, give me a call. We offer scholarships and internships to promising students. Andre took the card carefully, reading the embossed text. Richard Kensington, CEO of Kensington Technologies. He'd heard of the company. They made components for phones and computers. His eyes widened slightly. Thank you, sir, he said, tucking the card into his pocket. He wasn't sure if anything would come of it, but it felt important somehow. Richard checked his watch. I can still make my meeting if I leave now. Thank you again, Andre. You know, I was having quite a terrible day before this happened. Ironically, this breakdown might have been the best part of it. Andre smiled. Glad I could help. As he picked up his backpack to continue home, Richard called after him. One more thing, what school do you attend? Andre turned back. Carter High School, sir. Richard nodded thoughtfully. Carter High, I'll remember that. Andre waved goodbye and continued on his way home, thinking about the strange encounter. By the time he reached his apartment building, he'd nearly convinced himself that nothing would come of it. Rich people said nice things all the time without meaning them. Still, he carefully placed Richard's business card in his desk drawer when he got to his room. He had no way of knowing that this chance meeting on a random Tuesday afternoon was about to change the course of his life forever. He couldn't have imagined that Richard Kensington would appear at his school just 2 days later, asking to speak with him and his mother. And he certainly couldn't have predicted how a simple act of kindness, changing a tire on the side of the road, would open doors he never knew existed. But sometimes, life's biggest changes come from the smallest moments. And for Andre, this was just the beginning. Andre didn't tell anyone about meeting Richard Kensington. Not his mom, not his grandma, not even his best friend Tony. Something about the encounter felt private, like a secret he wanted to keep close. He tucked the business card away in his desk drawer and tried not to think about it too much. The next day at school was like any other. Andre sat in the back of his math class, finishing the worksheet before most of his classmates had even worked through the first few problems. Math had always come easily to him. Numbers just made sense in a way that other things didn't. Mr. Williams, his teacher called, noticing he'd set down his pencil. Would you mind coming up to explain how you solved problem 7? Many of your classmates seem to be struggling with it. Andre felt his face grow warm as he walked to the front of the class. He didn't like being the center of attention, but once he started explaining the algebra problem, his nervousness faded. Breaking down complex ideas into simple steps was something he enjoyed. So you see, he concluded, if you isolate the variable first, everything else falls into place. His teacher nodded approvingly. Thank you, Andre, that was very clear. As Andre returned to his seat, he noticed a few of his classmates looking at him with a mixture of respect and annoyance. Being smart in his neighborhood was complicated. Some people admired it. Others thought he was showing off or acting white. Andre had learned to keep his head down and not make a big deal about his grades. After school, he headed to the community center where he tutored younger kids in math twice a week. It only paid a small stipend, but Andre enjoyed it. There was something satisfying about watching a confused expression clear up when a concept finally clicked. "Hey, Andre," 10-year-old Deshaun greeted him excitedly. "I got a B+ on my math test. That's my best grade all year." Andre gave him a high five. "That's what happens when you put in the work." "Ready to tackle fractions today?" An hour later, as Andre was packing up his books, Ms. Patterson, who ran the tutoring program, approached him. "Andre, there's someone here asking for you," she said, her expression curious. "Says he's a friend of your uncle's." Andre frowned. His uncle didn't have many friends, and certainly none who would come looking for him at the community center. He followed Ms. Patterson to the front desk, where Richard Kensington stood in his expensive suit, looking remarkably out of place among the worn furniture and faded posters. "Mr. Kensington?" Andre couldn't hide his surprise. Richard smiled warmly. "Hello, Andre, I hope you don't mind me tracking you down. I called your school, but they said you'd already left for the day. Someone mentioned you might be here." Ms. Patterson looked between them. "You two know each other?" "This young man helped me out of a jam yesterday," Richard explained. "Changed my flat tire and refused payment for his time." Ms. Patterson nodded, not looking surprised. "That sounds like our Andre. Always willing to lend a hand." "I was wondering if I could speak with you for a few minutes," Richard said to Andre. "And perhaps with your parents as well, if possible." Andre felt a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "My mom's working until 7 tonight. She's a nurse at County General." "I see," Richard said. "Well, perhaps we could chat briefly now, and I could arrange to speak with your mother another time." Ms. Patterson touched Andre's shoulder. "You can use my office if you'd like some privacy. Door stays open, of course." Andre nodded gratefully and led Richard to the small office at the back of the community center. The space was cramped but tidy, with a desk covered in grant applications and children's artwork decorating the walls. "I apologize for showing up unannounced," Richard said as they sat down. "But our conversation yesterday has been on my mind." Andre shifted in his seat. "Is something wrong with the tire I put on?" Richard laughed. No. The tire is perfect. In fact, I took your advice and had it properly replaced this morning." He leaned forward slightly. "I'm here because I was impressed with you, Andre. Not just your mechanical skills, but your attitude, your work ethic, and your goals." Andre wasn't sure how to respond. Adults didn't usually talk to him this way, like he was an equal. "I mentioned my company yesterday," Richard continued. "What I didn't mention is that I also run a foundation. The Kensington Foundation funds educational opportunities for promising students who might not otherwise have access to them." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a glossy brochure. "We provide mentorship, tutoring, summer programs, and eventually college scholarships. I believe you might be a perfect candidate for our program." Andre stared at the brochure in disbelief. The cover showed smiling students in labs and classrooms, all wearing shirts with the Kensington Foundation logo. "Why me?" Andre asked finally. "You don't even know me." Richard's expression grew thoughtful. "Do you believe in fate, Andre?" Andre shrugged. His grandma believed in fate, but his mom always said people made their own luck through hard work. "I'm not sure I do either," Richard admitted. "But sometimes coincidences are too meaningful to ignore. Yesterday my driver was on vacation. My usual route was closed for construction. My tire went flat in a neighborhood I rarely visit. And you, with your mechanical knowledge and ambition, happened to walk by." He spread his hands. "Call it what you will, but it feels significant." Andre looked down at the brochure again. The opportunities described inside seemed impossible. Mentoring from industry professionals, access to state-of-the-art labs, college prep courses. "This sounds amazing," he said slowly. "But there must be a catch." Richard shook his head. "No catch. We select students based on potential, not ability to pay. The foundation covers all costs." He paused. "Of course, we would need your mother's permission, and you would have to maintain good grades and attendance. The program is demanding. Why would you do this for strangers?" Andre asked, still skeptical. Richard's expression softened. "Because someone did it for me once. I didn't always have," he gestured at his suit, his watch, "all this. I grew up in a coal mining town in West Virginia. My father died in the mines when I was 12. We had nothing." He took a deep breath. "But my high school science teacher saw something in me. She helped me apply for scholarships, stayed after school to tutor me, even drove me to college interviews because my mother couldn't afford to take time off work. Andre listened, trying to reconcile the polished businessman before him with the poor kid from a mining town. When I founded my company and made my first million, Richard continued, I called her, asked what she wanted, a house, a car, anything. Know what she said? Andre shook his head. She said, help some other kid like I helped you. So that's what I've been doing for the past 20 years. Richard smiled. Sometimes the most valuable thing isn't money. It's someone who believes in you. Andre felt something tighten in his chest. His mom and grandma believed in him, of course, but they could only offer encouragement, not opportunities like this. I'd need to talk to my mom about it, he said finally. Of course, Richard agreed. In fact, I insist on it. Would tomorrow evening work? I could come to your home, or we could meet somewhere your mother would be comfortable. Andre thought about their small apartment, with the water stain on the ceiling and the second-hand furniture. Then he pushed the thought away, ashamed of his embarrassment. His mom worked hard to provide that home. Our apartment is pretty small, he said honestly. Maybe the coffee shop on Elm Street? My mom likes their tea. Perfect, Richard said, writing the details in his planner. He handed Andre a business card, a different one from yesterday with the Kensington Foundation logo. Have your mother call me if she has any questions before then? As they walked back to the main area of the community center, Richard paused. I noticed you tutoring that young boy earlier. You explained things very clearly. Teaching is a rare skill. Andre felt a flicker of pride. I just try to break things down into steps. Most concepts aren't actually that hard if you approach them the right way. Richard nodded thoughtfully. That's exactly right. And exactly the kind of thinking we value at the foundation. He extended his hand. Until tomorrow, then? Andre shook it firmly the way his uncle had taught him. Until tomorrow, Mr. Kensington. After Richard left, Andre sat alone for a long time staring at the brochure. Part of him was excited beyond words. Another part was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Good things like this didn't just happen to kids like him. That evening, he showed his mom the brochure and explained about meeting Richard. She listened quietly, her face unreadable. And he just wants to help you? She asked when he finished. What does he get out of it? He says someone helped him when he was young and now he's paying it forward, Andre explained. His mom looked skeptical. I don't know, baby. If something sounds too good to be true, can we at least meet him tomorrow? Andre asked. Please, Mom. This could be my chance. She studied his face, then sighed. All right. We'll hear what the man has to say, but I'm not promising anything. That night, Andre could barely sleep. His mind raced with possibilities. If this was real, if this actually happened, it could change everything. Not just for him, but maybe for his whole family. He took out the business card and ran his finger over the embossed letters of the Kensington Foundation. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. The coffee shop on Elm Street was busier than usual that evening. Andre and his mom arrived 15 minutes early, but Richard Kensington was already there, sitting at a corner table with 3 cups in front of him. I took the liberty of ordering, he said as they approached. Black coffee for me, chai tea for you, Mrs. Williams. Andre mentioned it was your favorite, and hot chocolate for Andre. I hope that's all right. Andre's mom gave a tight smile. She was wearing her good blouse, the one she usually saved for church and had come straight from her nursing shift. Her eyes were tired but alert and watchful. Thank you, Mr. Kensington, she said, not touching her drink yet. Andre has told me about your proposal. Richard nodded. I imagine you have questions. I would if someone approached my child with an opportunity that seemed too good to be true. Andre sat quietly, glancing between his mother and Richard. He could feel the tension in his mom's shoulders. Let's start with the obvious, she said. Why my son? There must be thousands of kids who could use help with college. Richard didn't seem offended by her directness. You're absolutely right, Mrs. Williams. There are many deserving students. Our foundation currently supports 218 young people across the country. He turned to Andre. But as I told your son, sometimes connections happen that feel meaningful. The way Andre helped me, his clear aptitude for mechanical work, his ambition, his existing commitment to education and helping others through tutoring, these qualities align perfectly with what we look for. Andre's mom stirred her tea. still untouched. And what exactly would this program involve? Richard reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder. The Kensington Foundation offers a tiered approach. Initially, students attend weekend workshops twice a month, covering advanced topics in math, science, engineering, and technology. We provide transportation. As they progress, they gain access to summer intensives, internship opportunities, college preparation courses, and eventually, scholarship funding. He slid the folder across the table. Inside were glossy photographs of students working in laboratories, visiting college campuses, and receiving awards. There were also testimonials from parents and students, along with newspaper clippings about the Foundation's success stories. These are some of our current and former students, Richard explained. 87% of our participants go on to graduate from four-year colleges. 92% of those are the first in their families to earn degrees. Andre's mom flipped through the materials slowly. And the cost? Nothing, Richard said firmly. The program is fully funded. We even provide stipends for students who might otherwise need to work part-time jobs so they can focus on their studies. She looked up sharply. That's very generous. What do you get out of it? Richard didn't seem surprised by the question. A fair point. I'm a businessman, and few businessmen do anything without expecting returns. He leaned forward. In my case, the returns are threefold. First, my company benefits from a pipeline of diverse, well-trained talent. Several of our graduates now work for Kensington Technologies. Second, the Foundation's work improves our corporate image, which is good for business. And third, his voice softened, there's personal satisfaction in changing lives. Andre watched his mother's face, trying to gauge her reaction. She was hard to read when she wanted to be. You mentioned transportation, she said. How would that work? We have a service that picks students up and drops them off for all Foundation activities, Richard explained. You're welcome to accompany Andre at any time, of course. And supervision? All our instructors undergo thorough background checks. Our student-to-adult ratio is never more than 8-to-1. We also have security personnel at all locations. Richard slid another document across the table. Here's our safety protocol. We take the well-being of our students very seriously. Andre's mom scanned the document, then looked at her son. What do you think about all this, Andre? Andre took a deep breath. I think it's an amazing opportunity, Mom. The kinds of experiences they offer, I couldn't get them any other way. He hesitated. But I understand if you're not comfortable with it. His mother reached over and squeezed his hand. I want every door in the world open for you, baby. I just need to know these people are for real. Richard pulled out his phone. Would it help to speak with other parents? I can put you in touch with several families in this area who have children in the program. For the first time that evening, Andre's mom seemed to relax slightly. That would be helpful, yes. And perhaps you'd like to visit our local center, Richard suggested. See the facilities, meet some of the staff and students. She nodded. I'd like that very much. Excellent. Richard typed something into his phone. I've just sent you both the contact information for 3 local families, as well as details about our open house this Saturday. No commitment required, just come and see what we're about. Andre felt a flutter of excitement in his chest. His mom hadn't said no yet, which was more than he'd dared to hope for. One more thing, Richard said, pulling out another document. This is our formal invitation to join the program, should you decide to accept. Take your time reviewing it. We don't need an answer today or even this week. As they were preparing to leave, Richard asked, Andre mentioned you're a nurse at County General. Andre's mom nodded. 10 years now. That's admirable work, Richard said sincerely. Healthcare professionals like yourself kept my mother alive for years longer than doctors initially predicted. I have tremendous respect for what you do. Something in her expression softened slightly. Thank you. Outside the coffee shop, as Richard shook their hands goodbye, he said, Whatever you decide, Mrs. Williams, I want to thank you for raising such a remarkable young man. That speaks volumes about you as a parent. After Richard had driven away in his luxury car, Andre and his mom walked to the bus stop in silence. Finally, she said, What do you really think, Andre? Your honest feelings. Andre considered the question carefully. I think it could change everything for me, Mom, but only if you're okay with it. She wrapped an arm around his shoulders. Let's visit on Saturday. See this place for ourselves. The local center of the Kensington Foundation was housed in a renovated warehouse on the north side of the city. From the outside it looked ordinary, but stepping through the doors was like entering another world. The space was filled with cutting-edge technology, 3D printers, robotics equipment, computer labs, and science stations. Groups of students Andre's age moved between different areas, engaged in various projects. They wore casual clothes, not uniforms, but everyone had the same focused expression. Adults in Kensington Foundation polo shirts circulated among them, offering guidance. A young woman approached them with a smile. "Welcome to the Kensington Foundation. I'm Dr. Winters, the center director. You must be the Williams family." "That's right," Andre's mom said, shaking her hand. "Richard Kensington invited us to visit today." "Of course. Richard mentioned you'd be coming. I'd be happy to show you around." As they toured the facility, Andre could barely contain his excitement. One room had aerospace simulations. Another had environmental science projects. In the engineering lab, students were building and testing small-scale solar cars. "Do students choose what they want to work on?" Andre asked. Dr. Winters nodded. "We start with a core curriculum to expose everyone to different disciplines, but students gradually specialize based on their interests." In a quieter corner of the building, they met a small group of parents chatting over coffee. "New family?" one of the fathers asked with a welcoming smile. "My son joined 2 years ago. Best decision we ever made." Andre's mom introduced herself, and soon she was deep in conversation with the other parents while Andre continued exploring the facility. He found himself drawn to a workstation where a boy about his age was assembling what looked like a prosthetic hand. "That's amazing," Andre said. Watching the boy adjust the finger joints, the boy looked up and grinned. "Thanks. It's for a project where we design low-cost prosthetics for kids in developing countries. Want to see how it works?" By the time Andre's mom found him, he was helping test the hand's grip strength using different objects. "Having fun?" she asked, a knowing look in her eyes. "Mom, they're building stuff that actually helps people," Andre said earnestly. "Real things that solve real problems." She smiled, but there was something hesitant in her expression. "Can we talk for a minute?" Privately, Dr. Winters directed them to a small meeting room and left them alone. Andre's heart sank. His mom was going to say no. He just knew it. "Andre," she began, taking his hands in hers. "I've spoken with several parents. They all say the same things. The program is legitimate, their children are thriving, and the foundation has kept every promise." Andre held his breath. "I also called your principal yesterday," she continued. "She said the foundation has worked with 3 other students from your school over the years. All of them went on to top universities." She squeezed his hands. "Baby, I think you should do this." Andre stared at her, not sure he'd heard correctly. "Really, you're okay with it?" She laughed softly. "I'm still going to worry, that's my job as your mother. But I won't stand in the way of an opportunity like this." Her eyes grew serious. "But I need you to promise me something." "Anything," Andre said quickly. "Promise you'll stay true to yourself. All these fancy opportunities, these powerful connections, they're wonderful, but they don't define your worth. You were already exceptional before Richard Kensington found you. Don't ever forget that." Andre felt tears prick at his eyes. He hugged his mother tightly. "I promise, Mom, I won't forget." 2 weeks later, Andre Williams officially became a Kensington Foundation scholar. The journey that had begun with a flat tire was about to take him places he'd never imagined possible. 4 years could change a lot in a young person's life. For Andre Williams, those 4 years transformed everything. The first few months in the Kensington Foundation program had been challenging. Andre had always been smart, but the work was on another level entirely. Twice he'd nearly given up, feeling overwhelmed by the advanced material and intimidated by other students who seemed to grasp concepts more quickly. "I don't belong here," he had confessed to his mother one night after a particularly difficult robotics workshop. "Everyone else knows so much more than me." His mom had sat beside him on their worn couch, still in her nursing scrubs after a long shift. "Remember what your grandma always says? The only place success comes before work is in the dictionary." Andre had smiled weakly. "I am working, Mom. I'm working harder than I ever have. And that's why you do belong there," she'd said firmly. "You might need to work harder than some of the others right now, but that just means you'll be stronger in the end." The next day, Richard Kensington had called Andre personally. "Dr. Winters tells me you're struggling a bit," he'd said, his voice kind but direct. "That's normal, Andre. Every single student feels that way at some point, even the ones who look like they know everything. Andre had asked. Richard had laughed. Especially those ones. They're just better at hiding it. His voice grew more serious. We didn't select you because we thought you already knew everything. We selected you because we believe in your capacity to learn, to work hard, and to overcome challenges. That's worth more than walking in with all the answers. Those conversations had been turning points. Andre had stopped comparing himself to others and focused instead on his own progress. By the end of his first year, he'd caught up to his peers. By the end of his second, he was helping lead group projects. Now at 18, Andre stood on the stage at the Kensington Foundation's annual gala, adjusting his tie nervously. The ballroom of the Grand Hotel was filled with foundation donors, corporate sponsors, current students, and alumni. His mom sat at a front table, wearing a new dress she'd bought for the occasion, pride shining in her eyes. And now, the MC announced, I'm pleased to introduce this year's student speaker, a young man who exemplifies everything the Kensington Foundation stands for. Please welcome Andre Williams. The applause washed over him as he stepped up to the microphone. 4 years ago, speaking to a room full of wealthy, powerful people would have terrified him. Now it was just another challenge to overcome. Thank you, he began, his voice steady despite the butterflies in his stomach. 4 years ago, I was walking home from school when I saw a man with a flat tire. He told the story of meeting Richard, of changing that tire, of the unexpected opportunity that had followed. The audience listened intently, smiling at his description of his mother's protective skepticism and nodding at his account of his early struggles in the program. But the most important lesson I've learned, Andre continued, isn't about engineering or computer science, though I've learned plenty about those. He paused, making eye contact with Richard in the audience. The most important lesson is that success isn't just about talent or luck. It's about connections, and I don't mean knowing the right people, though that certainly helps. Andre smiled as a gentle laugh rippled through the crowd. I mean the connections between different parts of life, the connection between hard work and opportunity, between struggle and growth, between one person's choice to help and another person's life being changed. He gestured toward his mother. My mom always taught me that we rise by lifting others. Before the foundation, I understood that as a nice saying. Now I understand it as a way of life. Andre held up an envelope, the Kensington Foundation logo visible in the corner. This week I received my acceptance letter to MIT, along with a full scholarship from the foundation. He took a deep breath as applause broke out. In 4 years I'll graduate with a degree in mechanical engineering, hopefully with no student debt and a world of possibilities ahead of me. His expression grew more serious. But tonight I'm thinking about another young person out there, someone walking home from school, someone with dreams but limited resources, someone who might just need a chance encounter to change everything. He looked directly at Richard. I'm going to be that encounter for someone else. That's my promise to you all tonight. Thank you. The audience rose in a standing ovation. Andre could see his mother wiping tears from her eyes as she clapped. Richard approached the stage with a broad smile, giving Andre a warm handshake that turned into a quick hug. Excellent speech, Richard said. Though I should point out that I'm the one who benefited from our chance encounter. Finding you has been one of the highlights of my foundation work. Later that evening, as the formal proceedings wound down, Andre found himself in a quiet corner with Richard and his mother. Mrs. Williams, Richard said, you've raised an extraordinary young man. I hope you know how rare his combination of intelligence, work ethic, and compassion truly is. Andre's mom smiled. I've always known my son was special, Mr. Kensington, but I appreciate you giving him the platform to show the world. She took Andre's hand. I'm so proud of you, baby. Richard cleared his throat. Andre, there's something else I wanted to discuss with you. An additional opportunity. Andre raised his eyebrows. Sir, Kensington Technologies has a selective internship program for college students. Normally we don't take freshmen, but I'd like to make an exception in your case. Richard handed him another envelope. This is a formal offer for summer internships throughout your college years, with increasing responsibilities and compensation each year. Andre took the envelope, stunned. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Richard suggested with a smile. The work would align with your studies and you'd be mentored by our top engineers. But I'd planned to come home during summers, Andre said, glancing at his mother. Help out, maybe work at my uncle's shop. His mom squeezed his shoulder. This is too good to pass up, Andre. I'll be fine. Actually, Richard interjected, the internship includes housing in Cambridge, but also funds for regular trips home. We understand the importance of family connections. Later that night, back in their apartment, Andre sat with his mother at their small kitchen table, still processing everything. Did you ever imagine this? He asked her. 4 years ago, when I told you about meeting Richard, did you think it would lead to all this? She shook her head, smiling. Not in my wildest dreams, but that's how life works sometimes. One moment, one choice can change everything that follows. Andre nodded, thinking about the speech he'd given. I meant what I said tonight about being that chance encounter for someone else. I know you did, his mom replied. And you will be. The week before Andre left for MIT, he insisted on working a few shifts at his uncle's auto shop. His uncle had been dubious when Andre first joined the foundation program, worried that his nephew would get too good for the family business. But over the years, he'd come to see that Andre's new opportunities hadn't changed his character. They'd just expanded his possibilities. You know, his uncle said as they worked together on an old Chevy, you're the first person in our family to go to college. I know, Andre replied, tightening a bolt. Your grandpa would have been real proud. He always said education was the one thing nobody could take from you. Andre nodded, remembering his grandfather who had passed away 2 years earlier. I wish he could have seen all this. His uncle put down his wrench and looked at Andre seriously. He did see it. Maybe not with his eyes, but he saw the path you were on. That's why he was always bragging about you to anyone who'd listen. On his last night before leaving for MIT, Andre couldn't sleep. He stood at his bedroom window, looking out at the neighborhood where he'd grown up. The streets were familiar, every crack in the sidewalk, every faded storefront known to him. Yet somehow he was about to step into a world his younger self couldn't have imagined. He thought about that day 4 years ago, when he'd decided to take the shortcut home through the industrial area. If he'd gone his usual route, he would never have encountered Richard Kensington with his flat tire. Never been invited into the foundation program. Never discovered just how far his potential could take him. One small choice had altered the course of his life. And now he was about to embark on a journey that would allow him to make those kinds of differences for others. The next morning, as his mother drove him to the airport in their old car, Andre made a silent promise to himself. No matter where his education and career took him, he would remember where he came from. And he would create chances for others, just as Richard had created a chance for him. Some people might call it paying it forward. Andre thought of it more simply, completing the circle. 8 years had passed since Andre first changed that flat tire. 8 years of growth, learning, challenges, and triumphs. MIT had been everything he'd hoped for and more. The classes pushed him harder than he'd ever been pushed before. The labs offered technology he'd only dreamed about. His fellow students from all corners of the world expanded his thinking in ways he hadn't anticipated. The summer internships at Kensington Technologies proved equally valuable. Each year, Andre was given more responsibility, moving from basic tasks to leading small engineering teams by his senior year. Richard Kensington remained a consistent presence, checking in regularly and offering guidance when needed. But throughout those years, Andre never forgot his roots. He flew home for his mom's birthday every year, no matter how busy his schedule. He helped his uncle upgrade his auto shop with new equipment. He stayed in touch with the community center where he'd once tutored, donating books and supplies when he could. Now, at 26, Andre stood in front of a rundown building in his old neighborhood. The faded sign above the door read, Williams Community Innovation Center, a name that honored both his family and his vision. Are you sure about this location? Asked Tanya, the project manager he'd hired. There are newer buildings available in other parts of the city. Andre shook his head. It has to be here. This is where the need is greatest. He unlocked the door and they stepped inside. The space was empty and dusty, with peeling paint and outdated electrical fixtures. But Andre didn't see these flaws. He saw potential. The main workshop will be here, he explained, gesturing to the largest area. 3D printers, laser cutters, computer stations, all the technology young people need to bring their ideas to life. The classrooms will be along that wall and the community meeting space in the back. Tanya made notes on her tablet. And the funding? You mentioned you have investors? Andre nodded. The Kensington Foundation is providing the initial grant. I've secured additional funding from tech companies looking to diversify their talent pipeline. Plus, I'm putting in a significant portion myself. After graduating from MIT with honors, Andre had joined Kensington Technologies full-time. His innovative designs for low-cost prosthetics had led to patents and promotions. By 25, he was one of the youngest project directors in the company's history, with the salary and bonuses to match. But despite his success, something had been pulling at him. A promise he'd made on that stage 8 years ago, a circle that needed completing. When does construction begin? Tanya asked, interrupting his thoughts. Next week, Andre replied. We're on a tight schedule. I want to open by September in time for the new school year. As they continued discussing plans, the front door opened. Andre turned to see his mother walk in, still wearing her nursing scrubs from her shift. Though her hair now showed streaks of gray, her smile was as warm as ever. So this is it, she said, looking around. Your big project. Andre hugged her tightly. What do you think, Mom? She stepped back, taking in the space. It needs work. But so did you when I first got you. She winked at him. And you turned out all right, Andre laughed. I had a good foundation. Later that evening, as they sat in her apartment, newer and nicer than their old one, but still in the same neighborhood, his mother asked the question she'd been holding back. Are you sure this is what you want, Andre? You have such a promising career at Kensington. This center will take so much of your time, your energy, your money. Andre considered her question carefully. Do you remember what you told me before I left for MIT? You made me promise to stay true to myself. She nodded. This is me keeping that promise, he continued. I love my work at Kensington and I'm not leaving it. But this center, it's my way of creating more chances for kids like me. Kids who have the potential but lack the opportunities. His mother reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Your grandpa used to say that a person's true wealth is measured by how much they give away. Then I plan to be very wealthy, Andre said with a smile. The next months flew by in a blur of construction. Permits, equipment installations, and hiring. Andre spent every weekend and many evenings at the center, often working alongside the contractors. His engineering background proved useful as they modernized the building's infrastructure. One Saturday morning, as Andre was testing the electrical system, a familiar car pulled up outside. Richard Kensington, now in his 70s but still sharp and energetic, stepped out. I thought I might find you here, Richard said, looking around at the transformation taking place. It's coming along nicely. We're ahead of schedule, actually, Andre replied proudly. Thanks in large part to your foundation's support. Richard waved away the gratitude. The foundation merely provided resources. This vision is entirely yours. He ran his hand along a newly installed workbench. You know, when I started the foundation 25 years ago, this was exactly what I hoped would happen. That students we helped would go on to help others. Andre led him through the space, explaining each area and the programs he planned to offer. After-school tech workshops, weekend engineering projects, career mentoring, college preparation. The center will be open to everyone, Andre explained, but we'll have specific outreach to underserved communities. No fees, no applications, no barriers to entry. Richard nodded approvingly. And you'll continue your work at Kensington Technologies? 4 days a week, Andre confirmed. I've worked it out with the executive team. My 5th day plus evenings and weekends as needed will be dedicated to the center. Balance is important, Richard agreed. Your professional work will inform what you teach here and vice versa. He paused. I've been meaning to talk to you about your future at the company. Andre raised his eyebrows questioningly. The board is creating a new division focused on accessible technology for developing regions, Richard explained. Given your work on low-cost prosthetics and your obvious commitment to serving underrepresented communities, you'd be an ideal candidate to lead it. Andre stared at him, momentarily speechless. That would be an incredible opportunity. Think about it, Richard said. The position wouldn't be announced for another 6 months, giving you time to get this center up and running first. As the opening day approached, Andre's excitement grew. The transformation of the building was complete. Old walls had been replaced, new technology installed, bright colors painted throughout. The Williams Community Innovation Center was ready to welcome its first participants. The night before the grand opening, Andre couldn't sleep. He drove to the center in the early morning hours and sat in his car, looking at the building with its new sign glowing softly in the pre-dawn light. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. "Couldn't sleep either." He smiled and replied, too excited. "Want to bring coffee to the center?" 20 minutes later, they sat together in what would soon be the main workshop, steam rising from their cups. "I'm proud of you," his mother said simply. "Not just for this, but for the man you've become." Andre nodded, emotions making it hard to speak for a moment. "I wouldn't be here without you, Mom. Your support, your belief in me, even when the path wasn't clear." "That's what parents do," she replied. "We believe in our children even when they don't believe in themselves." The opening day exceeded all expectations. Hundreds of community members came to tour the facility. Local news stations covered the event. The mayor gave a speech praising the investment in the neighborhood. But the moment that meant the most to Andre came late in the afternoon, as the crowds were thinning. A young boy, maybe 12 years old, approached him hesitantly. "Excuse me, sir," the boy said. "Is it true that anyone can come here and learn?" Andre knelt down to meet the boy's eyes. "Absolutely. What are you interested in?" "Robots," the boy said, his face lighting up. "I've been trying to build one from stuff I find, but it doesn't work right." Andre smiled, remembering his own early attempts at engineering projects. "Bring it in next week. We'll figure it out together." The boy beamed. "Really? You'll help me?" "That's why we're here," Andre assured him. "Sometimes all you need is a little help to get where you're going." As the boy ran off excitedly to tell his mother, Andre felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The circle that had begun 8 years ago with a flat tire was now complete. But it wasn't ending. It was expanding, reaching out to include more lives, more possibilities, more futures. That night, as he finally closed up the center, Andre paused in the doorway and looked back at what he had created. He thought about the thousands of young people who would pass through these doors in the years to come. Some would become engineers like him. Others would find different paths, but all would have something he had been given, a chance to discover their potential. One moment, one choice, one act of kindness had changed the course of his life. Now he was creating those moments for others, and in doing so, Andre Williams had found his true purpose.